Well, hey there, small business owners. Are you ready to take your company to the next level with marketing that will help you reach your goals? Well, buckle up because you're in the right place. Welcome to our very first live stream video. Woohoo! Well, we'll be talking about branding, logo development for small businesses. Now, we may stumble a bit since it's our first time, but we promise it'll be worth it. We're a small business marketing agency that's all about demystifying the important aspects of marketing so that you can create the best marketing possible for your company. And we're starting with the foundation of your entire marketing strategy, which is branding and logo development. I'm Beverly Cornell, and I'm the owner and chief marketing strategist for BC and Associates Marketing. Our agency is all about helping female small business owners take their companies to the next level by creating a strategy focused on your goals, your products and services, and your customers. Today, I'm joined with our creative director and lead graphic designer, Don Boyd, who has over 30 years of industry experience and has been with us, is it about 5 years, Don?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
So let's get started and learn a little bit more about Don's background. Thanks for joining me today. I know this is outside of both of our comfort zones, and I appreciate your willingness to just jump in.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
tell us a little bit about how you got started in the marketing industry and kind of your background.
Well, Beverly, thanks for having me today. I'm a graphic designer. I've been working for over 35 years in the industry. I've got, I would consider it a pretty diverse experience of from different jobs that I've had in the graphic design industry, from industrial technology to wayfinding and just the traditional brand strategy, marketing materials in multiple formats, from print to digital to in displays and exhibits, that sort of thing. So
You do a little bit of everything. I know you like work on catalogs and
yeah,
business cards, and I mean everything from like start to finish, which
yeah,
is exhaustive sometimes.
yeah.
But we appreciate that you're so versatile with us and what we do with our clients. So can you like maybe take a little step back and explain what a brand is and why it's important for businesses to have a brand?
I feel that a brand is it's a perception. It's really almost an abstract thing. A brand is something that that you see, you hear, you experience. And when I say abstract, I think there's brand and then there's branding. So I think brand is an intangible. It's an intangible thing that you like I say, it's just there, and it's built over time, and it's something that that represents a company. I think that like I say, it's you can't really put your finger on what it is, but if you see it, you know it, right? So yeah, that's what I would think that it means.
We had a customer with one of our clients, the Pet Bistro. Her colors are very it's purple and lime green and like really bright and juicy colors. And we've been branding with them, doing branding and brand work with them for about 12 years. And uh, there was a store being built, a new location being built, but there was no sign outside yet. And when she passed it, she was like, I know those colors. That's the Pet Bistro. They're coming here. So without even a sign or anything, they knew it was the Pet Bistro. And that I think does take a lot of time and very conscious effort to create that. And you've been part of that with the Pet Bistro as well, since you've been on the team. You've been integral actually with that. So
Yeah.
so what are the elements of a brand?
Um, they're everything from a logo to a website, fonts, color schemes, taglines that you might have that are with your logo, your building, if you have vehicles that are
Yep.
part of your company, Even your employees can be part of your brand, right? So they're, even though they're in the behind the scenes in the background, but it's the stuff that they say about the company. It's the experiences they have working for the company. So really, there's so many levels of your brand that it's is it the outfit that they, or the uniform if they wear one.
Mhm.
It's so. But I would say those are there are many moving parts to a brand, but I
It's
think
from
those
every
are
little nuance too, like the texture, there's colors, there's even like the voice. Is it fun? Is it professional? Is it
right. The tone.
all the things that kind of make up how you present your company to the
Mhm.
outside world?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it's kind of, I call the brand like your soul and your essence, and how you get that soul and essence into a
Yeah,
color and a font and a texture and a voice that fits your soul and essence. The reason why you started a business, why you're so passionate about what you do, how you kind of make that into a visual experience for your customer.
yep.
So how can a strong brand help a small business stand out among, there's a lot of noise, out there with competitors and even in social spaces and with advertising and marketing. Everybody's getting all these messages. So how does a brand differentiate itself? How does it make it something that people go stop to scroll and go, "Oh, I want to learn more about that company." How do you do that?
Um, yeah, I feel that it's obviously you're trying to develop recognition and validity, right? So that
Mhm.
you want to come across as a serious player. You want to be taken seriously. And so back to the question we just talked about. When you talk about tone, and the perception that you're trying to create with your brand, and so getting noticed, obviously, everything that we just talked about with regarding color, um, and something that is, I think, creative, so that people stop and say, oh, that's unique, it's different, it's not, you want to be look, you want to look different than everybody else, right? So I think that all those things that when you develop your brand are important, so that you do get recognition, and you kind of uh, create validity in your industry, in your field. And then that's something, again, that's kind of built over time, right? If you have a good product, all that stuff, I think, comes into um, all of that, the brand and the development, and how you are perceived in your industry.
So I think that when I'm thinking about brand, and I think about when we first start with a customer and we first start out with talking to the client and saying, like, tell us about who you are and what matters to you. I think actually kind of the elements start to reveal themselves when they start talking about themselves too. Like, if we know their customer is on Instagram, we know that we have to create a really visual picture to be striking in the scroll for that. Or if they are something that we really want to promote on a billboard or something, we need to make sure that the graphics fit in that kind of medium. So we're careful about the target that we are talking about, where they hang out, how that brand is displayed in those things as well. You don't want to create like a tiny little brand and then have to blow it up, and then it's that doesn't really fit. So you want something
Sure,
that actually can expand and grow and do all those things too.
sure.
So what does
Yeah,
a role what role does the graphic designer and the creative director, what you do, play in the branding process and the logo development process?
I think it's I consider it a team atmosphere. You have to have a collaboration between you and the company that you're working with. You need to find out what their needs are, and then you're basically representing the company at that point, I think. Um, and so working with them together, finding out what their ideas might be, and then just doing research on competitors that they might have to see what other people are doing, and how to do it better than everybody else, right? So I
That's
think
the
that,
hope.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's it. I think it's a partnership, really, I guess, is the way I consider it to be. And then it's something that I feel that if you have a good a working relationship with the client, then obviously that will grow. And it's, I guess it's self-serving so that both of you kind of grow together and you build out something that you can both be proud of. So,
I think that's important, Don. I think when we start with a brand, it's kind of we know some and we do know a lot about the client, but when we start out, it's what the client has told us, what we've researched. But as we work with the client over time, I really feel like that information, that partnership actually gels more and we get more in tune with that soul that we're talking about. And it does kind of evolve. I don't think that a brand can stay stagnant. I think you have to kind of keep it fresh over time.
mm,
I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true because I'm not a graphic designer. I know enough to be dangerous, I always say, but that it's like every 5 or 6 years or so, there's really like kind of a transition that needs to happen with a brand evolution that needs to happen. Or it can feel stale. It's colors, fonts. Like nobody wants to use Comic Sans anymore because that's just not what we do. So, um, would you say that's true? Like every 5 or 6 years, like it needs to kind of ebb and flow and kind of
yeah,
morph
yeah,
a little?
yeah. I feel that you need to take a step back because I think that's one of the pitfalls as a graphic designer that we have is complacency. And this is the way we always do it. This is the way.
Hmm.
And I've worked with several companies that have. One example that I do have is a company that I work for. They have an actual company that is the brand. It's called Brand Center, and all the designs that we create, because it's an international company, and so if I create something in North America from Michigan, I submit it to Brand Center, and they have people there checking everything to make sure that fonts, colors,
Hmm.
layouts, templates for different, if it's a poster or if it's a postcard, all those guidelines are met. And so then we get a response back saying it's approved, or you need to make these changes to it, right? Um, and I would say it's probably 2 years or so, the brand center goes through and they update all their templates. Hey,
Mm.
these are new design elements that we have to incorporate. And so they don't reinvent the wheel, but they'll take certain things and they'll freshen them up and they'll update them so that it looks fresh and different, instead of using the same thing over and over again. So I think that's a good example of, that's a very big, company, and there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and it's a good way for them to kind of keep track of all the design that goes
Hmm.
through everything, so that everything that goes out that faces, the customer outside, even though it's done in maybe 50 different places, it all looks consistent. So, um, but that being said, I think it is important, and I know that some of the stuff that you and I do, I think it is important to maybe sit down and have maybe we have a creative session that says, hey,
Hmm.
this is where we've been,
Hmm.
let's see some fresh ideas on how we might want to move forward, so that we keep things fresh and different. So I think that's an important thing that I think that should be done.
Well, just this week we had a chat about a client who I felt like I was struggling because I was like, I don't feel like I have enough to work with to create a solid social presence. Like we had limited a couple colors and I was looking for some accents maybe to use. I was struggling to create fun and interactive content without it being feeling kind of boring. So I went to you and I said, "Hey, how do we freshen this up and maybe make it a little bit more modern?" And we talked about some accent colors and some textures and some different things that we could use to
Mhm.
help create a little bit of pizzazz and maybe um, allow us to like highlight different sections with different colors, and gives us a little bit more flexibility when we're doing our graphics and design
Sure.
for that particular client. So
Yeah.
sometimes you inherently kind of know because you're struggling, but sometimes you're right. We just get complacent and having that every 2 years of like check in. Hey, where are we? What needs to, do we need an extra color? Do we need to like maybe that color seems too vivid? Things like that. We need to kind of, as we go through the evolution, I feel like just like with websites and everything else, like it's never done. Like I feel like
Yeah.
it's always organic and living and breathing and kind of growing and changing. Um, it just needs to be, when you have branding though, you just need to be very mindful of being consistent and
Hmm.
like the brand center is, and monitoring that. We also work with a client that is a franchise. So they give us corporate branding guidelines that we have to follow for several locations. And so we try to bring some personality to the individual business using that corporate branding guidelines. And we always want to be the model of what to do, not what not to do for the
Right.
branding guidelines for that particular, because we want at the corporate conference to be highlighted as awesome, not don't do this. So
Yep.
we're really, those branding guidelines that are kind of developed around font and color and things like that are super important, just to kind of give it right and left limits of what you could do with your brand.
Yeah.
So how can well, I guess when you talk about changing and making it modern, how do you know that? Like, how do you know what's modern? Like, how do you, what, I guess for me, obviously you don't want to use Comic Sans, right? So, but how do you know as a graphic designer what's kind of hip and trendy, but not too trendy? Because you don't want to be like so trendy that your logo is out of date next year, like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of balance that?
I think as a designer, you're always trying to, you always want to like be innovative, and I'm always looking. I've subscribed to design journals and different, so I can see what other people are doing. You can see trends, right? So you can kind of
Hmm.
see trends in color, fonts, and also you have to look at the client itself and what niche they're in, right? So there are a couple variables, that have to do with the overall design as well. But so I think that's it. Just kind of staying current with trends and trying to be innovative. I think that's the big thing. So
So
um,
I read articles on strategy all the time. You are looking at designs all the time and seeing what's kind
yeah,
of
it's
happening.
funny. Like I'll even like if I'm watching something, and my wife, I do this to my wife all the time. But if I see something on TV and I see that the spacing isn't quite right, or the lighting's not quite
Yeah,
right, or
yeah. You a
so
menu probably drives you crazy. Like I that always
yeah,
drives me crazy when I see menus. I'm like, oh my gosh.
yeah. So it's funny. It's like once you really don't turn it off, right? So you're always kind of looking and absorbing, and it's I think it's even like subliminal almost, right? Like
Hmm.
you just absorb things. You're even if you're driving down the road and you see
Hmm.
a billboard, or you see like, and then it'll pop in your head going, okay, that's kind of a cool idea. Or so I think as a designer, you're always learning and growing, even if on the software side of things as well. I'll take a day and just say, you know what, today I'm just going to spend time and exploring Photoshop, right? They're always updating
Yeah, the
software and things.
tools,
And
sure.
so, especially with AI, the stuff that's coming out, Photoshop just has some really amazing new tools. And so I think learning all of those things, adding more tools to your toolbox, I think also helps you to become a better designer, and you can utilize those to make more innovative designs and things like that. So make your job and your life easier.
I think AI is like such a revolutionary thing for marketing in general. Just, I mean, from March till this is August, right? It was kind of
Yeah,
launched in March of 2023, and it's August. It has revolutionized the way that um, we look at copy and all kinds of things on the marketing side. And I
yeah,
know there's some ethical issues even with the image side of how AI is going to affect people who have copyrights and things like that. Like there's a whole, they're just trying to figure out the laws and like how is it going to protect people? And
Yeah.
it's kind of the wild, wild west right now with AI,
Right.
but it's super exciting because I do think it will make us more creative. It will allow us some, sometimes it's like you stare at that blank piece of paper, blank piece of paper or on the screen and you're like, okay, where do I start? And sometimes having just a place to start is just so helpful to get you to where you want to go. And our job as marketers and graphic designers is to take that and make it more personal and use our experience and the customer's voice and to try to really make sure that that kind of comes together for the client at the end of the day, right? So
Yeah.
I think the other thing, I think graphic design, I don't know. I mean, again, I always say I know enough to be dangerous. I know some principles of design. I know some of those basic things. Um, and I've been doing this for over 25 years, but I would never call myself a graphic designer. And I say that with utmost respect because I feel like I read all the time about strategy and all those kinds of things. But I don't know enough about all the new trends and it's hard to stay on top of all this new stuff, even from a strategy perspective or a social media
Mhm.
tool perspective. So kind of deferring to you has allowed me to just know that you're kind of the one that's up to date. You're the professional. You're the one that I can turn to because I don't have the time to know every detail about design and all the new tools in Photoshop and all the things that needs to happen. So I think a lot of small business owners tend to think that their nephew who just went through one graphic design class in college can design something. And yes, they can design something certainly, but this is your brand that you're going to have for a long time. Is that who you want to entrust with this very precious thing? I believe. So, kind of,
Yeah.
what do you think is the difference between a professional designer versus, my neighbor's kid is in marketing program at such university? Because we've all heard that, right? Like we
Yeah.
live in that space where I think I can do it myself or somebody else. Canva is a great
Sure.
tool, but is it the best place for you to create or the freelogo.com kind of stuff? So kind of talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit. What's your thoughts on a professional versus somebody who's learning versus a free logo maker kind of thing?
Yeah. So, and I've got a couple background stories to that that are, I think, kind of fun. But yeah, I think that that is one of the toughest challenges that I would call them, I guess, professional graphic designers have today. Is that there are people that are self-proclaimed. They know how to use PowerPoint or something, um, and they think that that they can create a business card or something. But probably the biggest thing is like I say, just and it goes back to even I always I feel like I'm like my grandfather or something, but I always say like these kids today, I say stuff like, um,
You are
but
totally your dad
that's
now,
one of
right?
the things that I feel like when I came out, because when I came out, everything was done manually. We keylined manually. We
Hmm.
didn't have computers yet,
Hmm.
right? And so we spent, in school, we spent quite a bit of time just on type and kerning and leading, and everything was done manually. So if you needed to keyline something, you literally had to, lay it down by hand versus typing in a
Hmm.
computer. So and so, it's just funny to see like how technology has changed in my lifetime.
My lifetime as
Uh,
well.
but I think people rely too much on computers sometimes, and they'll just typeset a headline and they won't bother taking a look at, hey, is the leading is the kerning correct, or is the leading correct, or things like that. So, and those are things that I think that like I say, that I don't know. It seems like it's almost like a dying, thing that people kind of take for granted now, maybe. Um, but yeah, I think that there are a lot of people out there that think that they can, do something. I just had it was a friend of a friend who was starting a business, and I had reached out to them and just said, hey, if you need help with the logo, I'd love to help you out. I remember what it was like starting out with my business, is that all of the things that you're worried about. So I offered up my services to him, and he said, well, I already have a logo that he had gotten from, one of these free logo sites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, send me over what you have. And so I saw it, and I'm like, all right, well, let me just provide you with some ideas and some concepts. And so the logo that he got was a PNG file. And
Okay.
so he couldn't create, he needed a vector version, which he couldn't get. And so we would have had to recreate it in a vector format.
Mm-hmm.
So I did some designs. He really liked him, and he said, you know what, let's just we're going to go with this design. And so we built him out, the branding package to get started in his business. We did it was a construction company, so I did some graphics for his van, and
Nice.
he was just ecstatic. And so it's just like I say, it's funny to see like free logo services versus what, if you sit down and do like a legitimate custom logo for somebody, what the differences can be. So I had another client that I worked with that they did an apparel catalog, and they did shirts and hats and gloves, and it was for and all their products were collegiately branded, and so they would specialize in clothing for college kids at different universities, right? And so you could call up and order a blue scarf, and they could add a Michigan logo to
Oh,
it,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so they had this catalog, and the logo on the catalog that they had been using for since the company had started was done by somebody that worked at the company. And so probably the first or the second year doing the catalog, we came back and I said, maybe we should consider, rebranding a little bit. So it's one of those things it's difficult to broach the subject, because
Mm-hmm.
you're talking to the client about something that they
Mm-hmm.
actually had a hand in creating.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but they were receptive, and so we did some designs, and they loved the direction that we went, and it was kind of cool. I was actually fast forward like a couple years later, I was up at Central Michigan. That's where I went to school, and we were at the bookstore, the college bookstore, and lo and behold, throughout the whole bookstore were hang tags that I had created for all of their like collegiate attire. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like pretty cool to see, hey, this is, they started out,
Mm-hmm.
basically working out of their garage,
Mm-hmm.
and they had grown so much that now they had manufacturing facilities, and they were, they went to like a national level. So it was kind of cool to see.
Well, I think even we did a vehicle wrap for one of the clients together. And when I saw the vehicle on the road, I was like, "Oh, we
Hmm.
did that!" So it's real
Yeah.
exciting to see, and you knew right away it was yours. Like, oh, and
Yeah.
I sometimes I'll share with you like how it's implemented, because you and I work together on a project, and you don't always see the end product. Like you'll see the outline and what you send to the printer, but you won't see it actually printed. And I'll
Right.
send it to you like, here's this end cap we did, or here's this billboard we did, or here's this. And it's just a very exciting moment to kind of see it in real life and big.
Yep.
It's
Hmm.
exciting. So I understand that completely.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things that we talk about is an omnipresent brand. So that means like everywhere you are, it's still your brand. Doesn't matter. You're not using something different inside your store, outside your store, in ads or in social media or on your email newsletter. Like everything is consistently branded, same colors, same font usage, same feeling across to create that overall brand experience. And it doesn't have to all be right away. Like we can start with just the logo and then the business card and maybe some stationery, and then move from there to maybe some templates for social, and then maybe an email template. Like we can build upon that based on what the client is needing. we've done everything from just the logo to like the whole package, right?
Sure.
So what are some key elements that you should be considered when you do create that initial brand identity? What are some things that we think are super important? I call talk about the soul and the essence, and I always ask like where, like why they started, what they did, who their customers are,
Yeah.
things like that. What are some things that are really important when you are talking to the customer about, or the client about their business that helps influence their brand for you?
I think kind of what you said, I think is important. I think tone is probably the most important thing, right? So if you walk into say you walk into a bar or a restaurant and you look at their logo and you kind of look at that or a menu and kind of say, okay,
Hmm.
what kind of food is it? You can tell just
Hmm.
by looking at their logo. Is it spicy? Is it ethnic
Yeah.
food? Is it American cuisine? You can almost tell. Is it expensive?
Hmm. Yeah.
Or is it family type, kid friendly type stuff.
Is
So
it vintage? Is it modern? Is it like you can
yeah,
tell almost right away
yeah. So
by
even by colors and by the font choice and by the just by the design itself, you get a right off the bat, you get a feel for kind of what they're all about, right? So that's true, I think, with any logo for any company that the tone, I think, sets the sets the perception of the brand. And I think other things, again, I always like to go for simplicity. I think that sometimes I think that's one of the things that maybe that I think it may be a person that isn't a designer. I think they try to overthink the logo. And maybe they try to tell the whole story in their logo, right? Versus like maybe being simple and creative and maybe implying some things without getting like too literal, is I think sometimes can be a pitfall as well. But so I think simplicity is it reproducible? Is it can you reproduce it in
black and white.
various
Yeah.
formats? Yeah, is it
Hmm.
color? Is it black and white? Is it
Hmm.
can it be embroidered on a shirt?
Can it be, does it fit, look good in a round circle for social profiles? Like there's all the things to think about, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If you blow it up, what does it look like?
yeah. And some people have secondary logos and primary logos. So I always try to incorporate some sort of secondary logo that kind of like one of our clients that we work on the Pet Bistro, where we can just take the bug,
Right.
we can use that, and now we've established that, and people recognize that. So
Hmm.
you don't need to say the Pet Bistro all the time, and then we just use the icon in certain places just to kind of represent them. So
Yeah, like for our fans on Facebook, they know the brand, so we use the bug all the time because they
hmm
know us already. We don't have to say the name. We've even
yeah,
had fun with the bug. We do it by season or by holiday. So we've it's a cat and a dog, and we put some hats on them and scarves on them and different things for different seasons to have fun with the bug. So we've even
yeah,
evolved it to have fun and be appropriate for specific holidays and seasons, which has been really fun, I think, for us to do. And I
yeah,
think it speaks to the brand. The brand is fun.
right,
So, and there are seasonalities to the brand. So it really makes sense that it fits that. It fits that. I know we talked a little bit about simplicity and tone. I think things like color are so important. There's a whole psychology on color and what colors subconsciously mean to us. Like I
hmm
know blue is like all about being trusted and respected, and so you'll see a lot of banks and investment,
corporate, yeah,
and
corporate,
law firms and things like that that use blue, and like a corporate blue. It feels very so it talks a little bit about that. Like even like certain fonts and colors have like a feel to them. It's not
yeah.
just
Well, that's
your
what I was
logo
saying. Kind of
itself.
going back to, like I said, the analogy of the restaurant logo, right? So if you like I say, if you see a font that is super fun and it's exciting colors and it looks like kid friendly, then that's what that logo is going to portray. If you see something that is very simple and silvers and blacks, and it's going to represent expensive or high class, or
Mercedes, Apple, you think of like
right. You
those
think
kinds
of
of
some, yeah,
brands, right?
black,
Yes, exactly.
for sure. So yeah, I mean, I think color is very important. I think fonts are very important. I think the usage of fonts is very, again, it's something that a lot of people don't think about, but it is. It's something that portrays, it has a huge weight, huge value, I think, when you're developing your brand.
I would agree. I think that using those, and not just one font, like you have like a main font and a sub font, and like being very strategic about how you use those too is important. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
even the highlight colors, what does that mean, and how often do you use them? Like we have 4 or 5 colors for the Pet Bistro, but there's one that we don't use very often. It's like more
Yeah.
for seasonal or if we need some kind of contrast. It's not used all the time. Like we're very conscious about how we use those colors accordingly to the brand.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess the next kind of thing is maybe a couple of examples of brands that do it well. Like who are we working with that you think is a great example of who's doing branding really well? Like what are the things that you think make a successful branding or brand situation?
The example of the Pet Bistro, I think they're a good example of taking the usage of their logo and the creativity that we do use their logo in, like you had mentioned, and the color schemes. A lot of the nice thing about the Pet Bistro that I feel working on the account is that we have a lot of flexibility with color, and with we do have the two main fonts that we use. The secondary font we try to use in a way that I think draws excitement, and I think it does play well off. They do play well off each other because they're completely different fonts. So
Hmm.
some people wouldn't think using them together, but when we do, and if we do it right, I think it really does make a huge difference, in getting across our message, and adding impact, and some funness to it, and colors, the different usage of colors. So I think it keeps things fresh. I think it's fun to work on that stuff because it does gives you a lot of leeway versus maybe some accounts that are a little more conservative, corporate, where
Hmm.
maybe you only have 2 colors to work with, and those are the only 2 colors that you get to use. So
Makes it so hard.
yeah, and so you have to be creative in other ways to try to bring in
Yes.
color, or try to bring in different things that kind of that add excitement to it. But so yeah, I think that's it. Is trying to keep everything fresh, and having fun with it. Coming up with new innovative ideas that um, you're always trying to push the envelope. So
Enough to be, like you said, fresh, but not to go too
yeah.
far out of those right and left limits, that it doesn't feel like the brand anymore.
Right.
So, what are some common mistakes small businesses make when they develop a brand and a logo beyond just having like their nephew design the logo, which is so common? Like, 25 years, I can tell you, I've heard it so many times. It's so common, and it can be very expensive to rebrand at some point. Like
Yes.
you have to replace all those assets that you developed over years. So doing it kind of right at first is actually maybe a little bit more costly at the beginning, but it costs you less at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like it's a good investment at the beginning, at the end of the day. So what are some other pitfalls that you see? I know that I have experienced where they don't take the time to really think about the brand.
Hmm. I think
And
that's probably the biggest thing
yeah,
is that I feel that some people don't understand the value of it. They see the price tag and they say, well, I know somebody that knows somebody that can give me a logo, right? And then, they use that logo for a while, and they have problems reproducing it. Um, and
mhm,
then, like you say, later on, they have to reinvest money because they they made some wrong decisions in the very beginning. And
yeah,
so I think that's the big thing. I think it's just understanding the value of what we do in marketing and how important that is. like I say, using free logo services and things like that.
Yeah.
I think the company should due diligence. They should find an agency or a partner that they're comfortable working with, interview them, get references. It's important for them to interview you just as much as it is for you, to interview with them. So
we're not a fit for everybody, right? Like we have a
exactly.
niche that we work with that we know and
Sure.
understand, and there are other companies who have different niches. So yes.
Ask for samples, ask for, case studies on things that you've worked with, the companies that you've worked with. And so, I think it's just to like I say, the value of what we do. And I think it's important. I think that's probably the biggest problem is people don't understand the value of it, and they might not budget enough money to take care of those things in the beginning and develop it. So it's nice working with, for example, the Pet Bistro. She knows the value of marketing and advertising, and she does a great job in developing that. And it does require effort. It requires money to do that. And but I think in the long run, it's taken her business to awesome levels. So
well, so much so that somebody can walk by a painted. There's no product in there and know it right away it's the Pet Bistro. Like that to me spoke volumes about how we have positioned her brand. You and I have talked a little bit too about, we've worked with other clients in the past. What I love doing and what makes me super excited when we talk about branding and logo development is when we can somehow, like you talked about, like sneaking stuff in a little bit. Like we have a client that it's a candle bar. You can build your own candles, and Urban Wick Candle Bar in Birmingham, and they have a little flame as part of their logo. Like it's a very subconscious kind of thing where you can allude to something without being super obvious, So
right.
I think that kind of those little touches are just what make your logo a little bit different and unique and um, a logo.com isn't going to give you stuff like that I think makes it so much more customized to your brand. And I think that matters. That really, really matters. So
Yeah.
So what advice would you give small business owners then to want to create a strong and consistent brand for their business? Where should they start? Even if they weren't to work with us specifically, where should they start?
Like I said, I would get references and talk to companies that have succeeded and say, how did you do it? What did you do? Because that's probably they're experts in their business, right? If they make candles, that's what they do. That's what they know. So call a professional, right? I would say that reach out and find somebody that you feel comfortable working with. But that's where I would start is, like I say, just talking to other people, getting references, and
I think you make a really good point. So when a small business owner starts a business, they start it because they have the passion and the know-how to start it, right? So if it's making candles, that's what they know. And you can go and make your own candle at home, but is it the same experience as if you went to that particular store and had their experience? They know the wax, they know the vessels, they know the right way to trim the wick, they know all the things. And that's what we're doing with the branding and logo is we're making sure that it also is the best colors and font choices, whatever that output looks like. So I think you're right. Like you go to the candle store to go get the best candle.
sure.
You want to do the same thing to go get the best brand and logo for yourself.
Yep.
So is there anything else that you want to talk about with branding and logo that you think is important for people to know that maybe I didn't mention in all of this? I think we did pretty good, Don.
Yeah, I think so. Not really, not that I can think of at least. I think we covered most of the important parts. So.
Well, thank you for stepping outside of your comfort zone with me today.
You're welcome.
We tell our clients all the time to do more video, and I said I have to do more video. If I'm gonna talk the talk. I have to walk the walk too, Don. So I
Right.
appreciate you jumping into the first episode of live streaming all about marketing for small businesses. We would love, if you'd like to learn more about branding and logo design, obviously you can visit us at www.bcassociatesmarketing.com. We have a whole page on our services and how our process works and all of that for branding and logo design and development. And if you have any questions on marketing, we're here to help you as well. We love helping small businesses grow and share your story in a way that's uniquely you. So thank you so much, Don, for joining me today. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you later this week
Great. Thanks
about
for having
business.
me.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.